I knew nothing about Gurdjieff. I'd never even heard of his name. I didn't know anything about it until relatively recently when I came across you speaking with Daniel Garner. It was the one where you were speaking about the unseen realm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just landed for me in that moment in my life in exactly the right spot. Just, when you've been thinking about something, you've really been grappling with something, and then you see just the right conversation. So that sent me on a little hunt to find all the conversations I could with you in them and to get the books. So I'm really delighted to be able to speak with you. There is something about this Gurdjieff fellow, from what I can tell, that reminds me a little of Davanloo, who is the person that developed ISTDP, which is a therapy form that I do. And there is some way, from what I've pieced together so far, there is some way that Gurdjieff is talking about inner work, all these expressions that I'm sure we're going to get into, that seems quite relevant to the way that we go about doing therapy with a client if we're using something like ISTDP. So I just wanted to explore that with you today.
Yeah,
that's my go at a brief introduction of what on earth I'm doing here. But I did want to say that part of the overlap, so there's a few themes in terms of the overlap of the two methods, which might be a good beginning point. One of them is there seems to be something really important here about how, as human beings, we deal with complexity and ambiguity, how it is that we sit with something that's not just black and white. I know that there is talk about the opposites and how we can make sense of two opposite points of view, or as we would talk about, two potentially conflictual emotional states that we carry inside. I think that's really key to all of this. I will read this little bit here. This comes from your book. I believe this is from, if I'm reading it correctly, this is sort of part of a transcript from maybe a group that you ran.
Oh, yeah. We did
Yeah. So you wrote, a person who understands the law of three realizes they need to reconcile opposites within themselves, but the reconciliation doesn't come from them. They simply create a space for the opposing forces to relate, allowing something new to emerge. I love that quote because, first of all, it talks about the exactly what we're doing in ISTDP, which is this idea that part of what we might call the healing comes from really building a person's capacity to sit with complex mixed emotions. From that, they learn to be able to sit with complexity in a more general sense. So, but I love that it says the reconciliation doesn't come from them. They simply create a space for the opposing forces to relate. Because in ISTDP, we don't go too far down the rabbit hole of exactly how this happens, if you will. But there is a sense from my work and being in the room with people in this process and my own experiences that it isn't something that comes from us. And so just seeing it written down it just captures it beautifully. There's something about what it is that happens on the other side of being able to be with complexity. How is it that then leads to transformation? How is it that then leads us to be able to experience something anew or come to some sort of new? It's more than an insight. I don't like using the word insight. It's more than that. It's a sublation or a generation of some new way of being able to be in a situation that we could never have dreamt of even moments before. There's something about creating that space and what it is that works through us. So I loved that. And then then you wrote, what's essential here is that it's not by our own will that we achieve anything. It is always by thy will, as the Catholic tradition says. It's always through the blessing force, which I think is beautiful. The work isn't about forcing change. It's about making space for the blessing force to enter. And I think that's lovely because that is also how I see the work that I'm attempting at least to be doing with someone if we're doing therapy. It is through clearing some of the emotional blockages that sit in the body that I think we are sort of creating that space where maybe something like this blessing force can work through. So I don't know if from all of that there is anything that sort of sparks out at you, but I'm really, really interested in this idea of what it is that we are creating space for.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. That's a great place to start.
Okay, cool.
Gurdjieff has a whole framework around this, which is very Christian in orientation. But essentially, all inner work is only able to prepare the way for something.
Yeah.
And so there's this real notion that any work that we do is in preparation for something else that we have no control over. So in a sense, we can't heal ourselves. It's not anything that we have control over.
Mm.
By being able to accept that idea, 1,000 anxieties just automatically drop away.
Yeah.
Soon as we feel as though, oh no, I'm responsible for my own healing and it's all up to me, then you're trying to carry the weight of the world. And so this law of three that he talks about, you know, the affirming, there's always impulses in us that affirm something or initiate something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a myriad of different examples for that, both in the intellectual space, the emotional space, the bodily space. Equally, there's also something that kind of denies it. You know, the little resistances that we have, but strangely enough, can also be quite receptive. So there's these two interesting forces that are always at play, and they come to us in many, many different ways and through all kind of parts of us. But this other force, this third force, sometimes it's called, or what's called the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost in kind of Christian terms, or that's been able to reconcile, must come from a higher order. It must come from a different level of reality. Because if we could reconcile ourselves, if we could, then we could do it immediately.
Yeah.
And everyone would be healed instantaneously. The fact that it's so hard means that part doesn't come from us. And so in a way, this preparation, this inner work is seeking to understand what that other part is, what that other energy is, what that other higher force is, and how do I orient myself towards that? And so in a way, one is trying to arrange something in oneself through a mature approach, because it's very easy to try to storm the gates of heaven and do all sorts of crazy things to yourself.
Yeah.
If we are only looking at the opposites, that creates the war within. I do one thing and then I hate myself, and then I try to do the opposite and then I equally hate myself for doing that. And I just yo-yo backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. And that drains a great deal from us. So this sense of, okay, how do I orient myself towards this reconciling force is really, really difficult, because I need to begin to understand how I work just normally. And that opens up a vast amount of kind of material, because for Gurdjieff, the reason why we can't see how we work is because we're essentially asleep inside.
Yeah.
And we lack a certain quality of energy that allows a seeing to occur. And so for him, energies and forces are a big part. Anything that happens inside of you is equally real. It's not just in your head. It's not just an emotion, right? Which normally those things are swept aside. For Gurdjieff, they are more real than your body, because it's your body that is the field that allows these forces to play out. And so it kind of flips the switch a great deal. So there's just from that angle, there's a great deal of work, but also it puts into stark question, which is normally not asked. That is, what is the purpose of human life? And from that question comes the angle with which to approach that inner work. Without that question, without something going, well, what is really the purpose of human life? Not a personal kind of purpose, but a cosmic purpose. What do humans do on this planet that no other creature can? What role do we play in it? And it's interesting. We've got a whole science around ecology and animals and phyla and all of that. But yet when it comes to humans, well, that could be anything depending upon, what meaning that we put to it. For Gurdjieff and certainly for Christ, no, there is quite a very clear purpose for human life. It's a big one. And so these energies are from a much higher order. And so in order to orientate, we then have to, in a sense, help educate ourselves, feelings, the body, the intellect, to begin to move away from, but still include everything that we have in terms of the material life, because, we need to raise kids, pay bills, all that. That can't be ignored. But also it is not the primary game.
No.
There is a much larger vision that we seem to have lost in the modern world. And then we reduce everything to just the social compliance. As long as we fit into society, then we must be fulfilling the purpose of human life. For Gurdjieff, for the Christian, no, that's just a side effect of trying to aim towards whatever the purpose is, but it's not the main game. And as soon as you make it the main game, then the preparatory work that you're trying to do then has a very different orientation.
Yes.
It steers towards what's in fashion.
Yes.
And away from what's eternal. And so there's, in a sense, it's very, very practical, but also it has this much larger vision, which is just very difficult to approach practically, but yet it's possible.
Yes. And much harder to get at by just reading a self-help book or this is where my mind's going as you're talking too. The idea of inner work, part of what appeals to me so much about what I've read so far of Gurdjieff is the emphasis on inner work, but in a very serious way, is the only way I can put it. Because inner work now, my sense is that there's sort of two camps. It's either seen as a silly, self-indulgent, narcissistic thing, right?
Yeah.
And also there's often a flavor of in all of that of being very rational, and it also usually includes things like the body and emotions are silly anyway, and will just lead you to act impulsively. And then there is obviously the movement around something like an inner work that I think is far more on the side of things that I think because what you're saying there, this links, it's almost like the roots of why on earth we would even do that have been ripped away. And so it becomes things like have a bubble bath, every morning write down, 3 pages of just how you're feeling, or like they become these sort of rigid rules, or they become much more about comfort and just feeling good in the moment. They can be focused on things like regulating the nervous system, but again, without any sort of interrogation of how that's applied in each moment. Like what's actually happening right now? Is that even relevant to right now? What else is going on? They're just sort of, there's a lot of emphasis on what for a while I was calling sort of toxic comfort, the removal of anxiety at all, and then you could see how this plays out often too relationally. What follows from that is often a stance of, well, this person led me to feel angry or hurt. And so I'm not, that's it. That's the end of that relationship. I deserve better than that. I'm protecting my inner space. I'm not going, there's a lot of relational implications here as well. And I think, obviously, for me, inner work is neither of those two things. And there's this weird parallel for me around inner work. When I was starting to take part in these online circles and having these conversations, and most of the emphasis was on, community and how it is that we work on relationships amongst one another, and everything that people were talking about, I could apply to how I understand the inner, like how we relate inwardly as well. And I always find that really interesting. And actually, there was something in one of these books I was reading, man is a microcosm representing the whole universe. I think that was from Gurdjieff. And that's pretty much putting words to what it is that I was experiencing, is that for me, inner work, the way that we pay attention to this inner landscape is really ultimately it's being done very seriously, but it's ultimately in service of who we can be together. Like, it's ultimately in service of this more like cosmic purpose, as you talk about. It's not about a narcissistic quest for me to be as comfortable as possible throughout my life, and to guard my boundaries and my comfort at all costs and be apart from others. It's actually so that together we can build something. We are working towards something that we can't do by ourselves. That's how I see it. And so it's a really serious and really challenging endeavor, and the idea of it has been really sort of cheapened or attempted to just be washed away completely. And I think even, therapy has a lot of problems as an umbrella term out there, because it is also true that I think that there are lots of ways that people have experiences of all sorts of psychotherapy or all sorts of therapy that really do err more on the side of you should feel comfortable all the time, you should feel good, you should have a bubble bath, that's sort of what is being given there. And it's very difficult to put into words what it is that we mean by inner work when we take it more seriously. And so I think that's probably the appeal of this approach, as I've been starting to read about it for me. I'm curious as to your experiences of what inner work, when you talk about inner work, what you come up against, or what people outside of the Gurdjieff circles might experience that to mean in your life. Like, how have you found that?
Yeah. Well, one of the, and talking about those online spaces and just spaces in general, there is all of the sense of community that people strive for and meaning and everything else. In theory, everyone has a good sense of what that should look like until they start to engage with people. And then it all falls apart.
Yes.
Because we come up against frictions immediately. It's just natural. And it's part of our energetic exchange. Things aren't going to be roses, as Gurdjieff would say. And so we're taught a lot of avoidance of the suffering that's needed.
Yes.
And that's the thing that generally turns most people off when they encounter the Gurdjieff work, because he talks about the need to intentionally suffer, the need to learn how to suffer and to labor consciously, as he would call it. Without those two things, you fall into checklists, avoidance, and comfort zones, whereby, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that kind of happens, but that effectively disconnects you from other people because you retreat inside, and it's not inner work.
Yeah.
It's just a reflex of, I don't like that, and so I'll go back inside. And as Gurdjieff, I think it was Gurdjieff who kind of pointed out that as we get older, we only do what we like. And so our life gets very small.
Yes.
Because what we dislike ends up growing and growing. And so we corner ourselves, and yet part of the work, that part of that inner work, is to begin to, in a mature way, begin to face that. Why does that person annoy me?
Yeah.
Like, what is it in me that gets offended or annoyed? And not to immediately go with whatever that is. But in order to do that, I need to have something in me that can just slightly remove itself from the reaction. And that's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, as as Gurdjieff would say, we live in this sleep-like state where we're completely identified with what we feel and think.
Mm.
It's only when we're slightly, ever so slightly removed from it
Mhm.
that, and sometimes it normally takes time, like weeks or days or years later, where I go,
Yeah.
wow, that was dumb. Why did I do that? But at the time, I was absolutely consumed by it.
Mm.
So there comes a very practical question. How do I de-identify from the reactions that I have? Not to say that they're not real or they're not a legitimate process that I'm going through, but that I can just leave a little bit of myself to see what that is. And then maybe I can learn to understand and see, well, okay,
Mm.
that suffering is not about the other person. Most times it's not about the other person.
Mm.
It's about me.
Mm.
It's about all of my, opinions and culture and, everything that's been generally grafted onto me since childhood that
Yes.
I now need to see. And it's not so much I do anything with,
Yes.
but it's the seeing that begins to change it. This is this third force. And often, and particularly
Mm.
when newer people come into the work and they do begin to perhaps see something, because there's exercises that can help with this seeing, they immediately want to change it.
Of course. Yes.
And the hardest thing is, no, don't. You you need to witness it and you need to bear
Mhm.
witnessing it,
Yes.
which is the suffering. And what does that mean? And so there's a whole lot of that kind of goes around it.
I love all that.
And and so with that, suffering then can then be seen to be not something to avoid or something painful, but actually something very useful.
Mhm.
It's useful for my inner work.
Yeah.
And then it takes on a whole new meaning in terms of relationships, because
Mhm.
no matter who you are, you have to deal with people, period.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also a reflection on how I treat others is how I treat myself.
Mhm.
And so sometimes others can be a bit of a mirror for that. So there's this change of orientation. How do I prepare the way? Well, first, I just need to see the material in myself and try to restrain judging everything else, which is incredibly difficult to do.
Oh yeah. 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 Because
And
we set up
and
to do it quickly. Yeah.
yeah, and we're trained. Our
Mhm.
modern world is very much trained not to endure. Thou shalt not feel pain. Thou shalt not suffer in any way, shape, or form, because that's bad. But to grow up, to be resilient, but also to have one's own eye, as Gurdjieff would talk about, this movement towards this crystallization of what he would call a soul, which is a very real and tangible thing. Can't be done unless one begins to go through, embrace, not go after, but embrace the suffering that comes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because so if I put that into some more ISTDP terms, just ways I think about this, there is just the pain that is inherent to life and relationships and caring about anyone or anything, and trying to grapple with relationships over time and that people are different and that comes necessarily with pain and grief and anger and sadness and love and it comes with a range of emotional tone that we can't get rid of, we can't get out of. And the way we would talk about it is that what happens is that we are not well acquainted with our emotions early on in life. And so we build up automatically, implicitly, we sort of build up. First of all, there's anxiety that gets generated when complex feelings are starting to rise. So in the situation of, say, being with someone that you love and they do something that enrages you, right? What a person might notice is not even that they're angry. They might just be flooded with anxiety in their body. They start to feel very anxious. And so that anxiety is sort of a signal that can drown out emotionally what's happening underneath, which is one step of removal from being able to just understand, I'm having this emotional reaction, which might be telling me something, and it is something I can sit with and try and be with and think about how I might want to bring it into my actions or not. But you can't when you're just being flooded with anxiety, because it can be a distraction from noticing the emotional tone, but also with anxiety of a certain kind, it comes with impulsivity. That is the thing. So when we feel angry and it's sort of fused with anxiety, that is usually the thing that leads us to just lash out immediately, to do the thing that we later on regret. It prevents us from doing what you're talking about here, which is to just sit and bear the feeling and to sort of remove oneself slightly and witness it. But then on top of that, as well as anxiety, we develop these very sneaky defenses against even having anxiety, let alone noticing the emotion that's underneath. And a lot of those can be intellectual in nature. So this can be the sort of quickly writing someone off as, well, I always knew that they were no good for me. Right? Just dismissiveness, and without any anxiety, without any emotional tone. But there's lots of ways that defenses can go, and they're often operating up here, but it changes how we make sense of the situation, and it happens very quickly. And most people have a go-to set of defensive armor that their mind will just go to if we don't purposely stop, evaluate it, and then sort of try and get underneath and notice the feelings. This defensive stuff that goes on is generally what I would call the kind of suffering that people are getting caught in, that they end up coming to therapy. So this is really the kinds of things that we're talking about, like depression, that general sort of term anxiety that people use, like I'm just anxious all the time, don't know why, everything's creating anxiety, lots of worrying, ruminating. It can lead to chronic health issues. It can go, lots of chronic loneliness comes from this because of obviously the consequences of following the lead of our defenses as opposed to stopping and checking in about what's really happening. So there's this kind of suffering that is a secondary suffering, that is the suffering born of our failure to work on our capability, our capacity to be with emotions in their fullness in our body without having to do anything at all with our actions. So it really is building the capacity to experience emotion in the body, not because the idea is that you're supposed to then use that emotion to act exactly how it wants you to. It's not for that purpose. It's actually in the sitting with the fullness of it, and not following the lead of these other systems that want you to move away from it quickly. Because it is ultimately avoidance. When we go to defenses too quickly, when we let excessive anxiety drown out what else is happening, all of these things are avoidance against just noticing emotional complexity in this moment. And that happens in the body. So it's also linked to the body. So the work that I'm doing is really just about trying to help people to get underneath all of that, to build their capacity so that when they have complex emotions in the body, they are better able to sit, bear them more intensely, without any fear that that's going to lead to impulsive action, because it doesn't if you get rid of the excessive anxiety. And that through that, that can still be incredibly painful. This is the whole point. The emotion might be a very deep emotional pain. It may be grief that has been pushed underground for years and years and years. It may be guilt for, finally seeing your part in things that you've never been able to see your part in. It could be intense anger. It's all sorts of very, emotional tone is not pleasant, especially when we feel it intensely. And so that is the kind of pain that we are learning to bear as well. But that is very different from that sort of secondary set of anxiety, depression, just sort of endless loops of feeling lonely, disconnected, all those things, hopelessness, worthlessness, all of that. That's a very different form of suffering. But it is like what I'm really appreciating is this emphasis on the reason people often don't want to do this work is because that does not sound appealing. It doesn't sound appealing to learn to feel your grief more fully and intensely in your body and to be with it for longer. you know. But that is really what we're talking about. And it's not until you have the experience of the qualitative difference of those things, I think that you can really even make that determination for yourself. I think people are often just imagining what that will be like and not wanting it. But it's if I just put it in simple terms, it's a hard sell in that, in that regard, this idea that what we are saying is that one way, well, what I'm saying from my point of view is that one way of getting rid of what might feel like loops of anxiety and depression and worry and loneliness in your life is to learn ways to become better equipped to experience painful emotions more fully and intensely in your body. It's a tall order, and a lot of people don't want to do it. Yeah. You were talking about something about this one's own eye. Is that how you were talking about it? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What is meant by that sort of terminology? What's he getting at with that exactly? Is that's the part that's able to sort of stop and witness what is happening?
Well, there's a bit in it, but essentially, if I can
Yeah.
put it in plainer language, it's not what we would commonly call a self or a version thereof.
Mm.
The self is normally the instrument of something. It's the functional
Yep.
stuff we call it's not me, right? We say, this isn't Luke, or what do we normally mean by that? Oh, it's some behavior that I'm not used to seeing, so therefore it must be a different self. When Gurdjieff talks about the I, and it's also spoken of kind of biblically, he defines it as the point in us of initiative. If you'd like it, it is acquainted with the will.
Yeah.
And what is acquainted with that? Because it is the source of our attention. Attention is an aspect of will.
Mm.
And so this gets into his inner work, which he says this: all inner work is about the study of your attention.
Mm.
And in order to do that, you need all of your attention to study all of your attention.
Mm.
And there's different forms of what we would call attention. There's the intellectual, which everyone normally knows in our modern culture. There's also the attention of the feelings,
Mm.
and there's various parts to that, and also attention of the body.
Mm.
And this attention is just this will faculty, if you like, that we have in ourselves that is able to collect and direct energies.
Mm.
The energies are then expressed through the body. So this will, this seat of initiative, this, however you want to call it, does not reside in the body.
Mm. Yeah.
And so it's like the notion of effort.
Mm.
When someone says, for example, I need to pay attention, or I'm going to make this effort, where does effort come from? Because from a chemistry point of view, as soon as a neuron fires, everything's easy peasy.
Yeah.
It goes via the simple laws of chemistry. But yet, every act of effort that you make seems to come up against something within you
Yes.
that's trying to move you in a different way, whether it's in thought or in feeling or in the body. So this real I, as he calls it, or this I, is essentially, in one sense, the objective of inner work. That I
Mm.
need to go back far enough, not just to witness, but there's something in me that, while at the same time is kind of beyond me, is incorporated into everything that I do, so that nothing can turn me upside down
Mm-hmm.
because I am anchored.
Yes.
And so that's kind of a yardstick, if you'd like, of
Mm.
work, of I need to constantly test myself in practice
Mm.
of how easily or not I can be shaken, because that will be a yardstick of, do I have something in me
Mm.
that can withstand that without force? It can just withstand it. And most people, when they do attempt that with certain exercises, become very disappointed. And that can lead to all sorts of kind of depression. But that's important because it starts to weaken the ego, this outer shell of you're maybe not as good as what you think you are.
Yes.
But yet there's something in you
Mm.
which maybe is way better than what you think.
Mhm.
So there's this kind of paradox.
Mhm.
And so you do, I think you were speaking earlier that this kind of inner work can very much go into the ego. It absolutely can. When I'm doing it for a reward,
Mhm. Yep.
I'm kind of doing it to be stronger or have spiritual power, those sorts of things.
Or be a good client. That's what
Be,
often the one too, right? Look at me,
yep,
I'm doing the thing. Yeah.
seeking approval, doing all of that. It only reinforces everything that cuts us off.
That's right.
And so this is where it, again, really, really difficult on,
It's difficult.
they might kind of outwardly look the same,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
But inwardly, very, very different, very different. And so that's the difficulty with, okay, how do I know whether I'm moving in the direction that's healthy?
Yes.
No one can tell you.
No.
It's something that you need to have a sense of yourself. And in a way, you can only do that by falling on your ass, going down dead ends.
Yeah. And you
And
will.
yep. And then you'll know, you'll go, that wasn't healthy. There was an inner taste to it.
Yeah.
But there was something else. And so this is this
Mhm.
kind of orientation, this preparation, this constant questioning of, why am I trying this?
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Um, Yeah, I like that. There's something in the inner eye that sounds similar to what Davanloo might call the healthy part. It's essentially the idea that all these defenses and anxiety and all of this stuff builds up around something else that still always remains, that is there, and that is the part that we're always appealing to, and the collaborative component of what's going on in the dynamic is always sort of appealing to, or it's called the unconscious therapeutic alliance, but it's appealing to the fact that we all have this sort of healthy part around which all these defenses and anxiety and all this sort of character stuff is built up around, but that is still there and can be gotten to. But what I like about this is that it goes sort of beyond that, in that the idea is that it is also not something really of our own. And that, I think, intuitively has always been something that I have felt or known, but have never found a way to talk about it in words. I've never found sort of a school of therapy that really incorporates it in that manner. But when I'm in the therapy room, I feel it. I feel that that just makes the most sense to me. I can't put it into words, but there is a difference to sometimes the way that I can discern the difference about sort of someone's performance versus something that feels more akin to them having this deeper knowing. It's my own connection into that. I don't know how else to put that into words. But I like this because it goes beyond, and it does make a claim that essentially we are talking about something that is beyond us. It sort of works through us. I know that's not quite right, but something of that type.
Well, no, and this is a really important point, because what most people, and I'm assuming most clients, but certainly
Yeah.
with me and most people that I've ever worked with, at some point, to grasp this, what I have to go through, what I have to endure, I have to know why I'm attempting it. Is there a purpose for it?
Mm.
The
Yeah.
purpose question, the why question, ends up being paramount. I can understand it initially. I'm trying something, and I'll see whether this is working for me or not. I mean, that's the initial kind of step. It's a bit of a litmus test, as everybody should.
Yeah.
But the further you go and the more you begin to see, and the more that comes up, becomes harder and harder in very different forms, but it doesn't become, at least in my experience, it does not become easier. And so one needs to be very much grounded. Why the hell am I doing this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of where most of the mental health industry kind of stops. It's where most things stop, because as soon as you move into that, why am I doing this? What's its purpose? Its real purpose. And why am I committing myself to it? Because inner work is commitment of resources, inner resources. It's, like going into business in a sense. I need to know if I've got the capital to do it.
And
The
time.
operation
And
and
time,
time.
because I find it's much a slower thing. It's a,
It is. It's a slow burn. I mean, there's points where you can go a little bit harder and a little bit
Yes.
more
Mhm.
intense, but it's really weighing it up.
Mhm.
And to come to a point to commit every waking moment is not something most people can do unless they seriously put into question, what is the purpose of human life and what is the purpose of my life? And that absolutely moves into the spiritual kind of religious realm, which I know is not the in thing in our modern world, but throughout all of human history, most people understood that that was quite a critical question to orient what I need to go through. You wouldn't go through business. You wouldn't be running the practice that you're running if you didn't have some relatively clear objectives of why you're doing it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Well, one
And
would
that's
hope.
one would hope, but yet it's funny when it comes to the spiritual kind of space, even though, yes, it needs to be very alive, organic, and all of this type of thing. At the end of the day, I've seen this a great deal where people just get lost or they go round in circles, and it ends up being very unhealthy for them because they think that being aimless is an aim.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's tragic for them.
Yeah. No, I
And
agree.
so, but where's this, there's a
Mm.
balance. I need to have a sense of where I'm going, and maybe that gets clearer as I go, but
Mm.
yet at the same time, keep it in question.
Mm.
Why am I trying this? Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe there's something else, or maybe I don't want to do it. And this is exactly why I need it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is a real problem in spaces like therapy because you're exactly right. It is a wall that we ultimately come up against time and time again. Um, and if I reflect just personally, I feel very fortunate that for whatever reason, I've always just sort of had this experience that I'm being held by something. And I have been through my fair share of suffering, and um, just that knowledge that something is holding me um, has been vital, and has been vital to all of this. And to then sort of be working with people where that's not apparent to them. They haven't had this feeling that they're being held by something. I think, yeah, we can get so far. And the method that I use is very valuable in lots of ways, and is far more valuable than any other psychology modality that I've come across yet. But there is sort of this hole in the middle of it is sort of where essentially we shift from, because I guess the way that we might talk about it in ISTDP is that part of how you help to um, help a client to connect into why on earth they would want to go through this is that you really paint a picture of the costs of living life as is. Like, if things just continue as is and you're stuck in your defenses and your anxiety, you're going to be on your deathbed, and you're going to and you will have just done this, and you really paint a picture. You do it better than I just did it there, but that's it, done. But and you want to really, because part of what happens too is the way that this continues to snowball over time is that people become avoidant of noticing the costs. And so you really are trying to help them to not avoid that and remind them and show them using their own words and experiences. But that's not enough. That's not enough in my mind, because it's enough for lots of people. But I think ultimately we get to a point of, I don't just want to hear about the costs of continuing as is. I want to understand what is potentially again, crude language, but what is the thing I am missing out on? Like, there needs to be more details about what is the other thing. What is the other? It's not just, oh, good, because then we're just appealing to avoidance again. Then we're saying, you can do this method that's all about not avoiding anymore in order to finally avoid a life where you would just live out the cost of your defenses. Like, it's sort of, what is the positive? What is the thing that I'm orienting towards instead that makes it worth it, outside of just, well, you might not have so much excessive anxiety anymore, which for a lot of people is a big thing. And is obviously important, but there is a group of clients where I think that's not enough, and there needs to be something more like, what is it that we are pointing to here? But this is the problem of, I guess, evidence-based care and all these things, is that, especially so based in the scientific method, is that we can't say anything about those things, when I'm practicing as a psychologist, because, I can't point to the papers and you see? And so it's this mysterious, and yet so much of what we're doing, especially in these psychoanalytically informed types of therapy, is all mysterious. So much of it is. And so it is a real problem. It is a real problem.
No, it is a catch-22. I don't have that.
I know. Tell me what you do.
which is quite freeing. And it's just interesting. I too also have felt held my entire life. And I've also seen that in others. There's something about being able to intuit or have a sense of something beyond me.
Yes.
In a very tangible way. And I've seen it. There's been many paths I've gone down, and somehow I came out of it. Not through me, I can tell you. And yet it's only when I look back and I go, wow, something aligned there to get me out of whatever that path was, because that was only going one place. And so sometimes you can't see it in the moment. Sometimes you need to reflect back. But to even have the openness to begin to see that maybe there's something opens the way. So there's a beautiful saying I like in the work, that this preparation, we are preparing the body, this vessel, to receive something. And so all the work is cleaning on the inside, and as best we can. We fumble, we're clumsy, all those sorts of things. But there is a space that begins to open up when I've done a sufficient amount of work. So something I need to do. But if I can be open to it, then there is something of a higher nature that comes in that is unmistakable.
Yes.
Unmistakable. And, you can feel it more or less, and everyone puts their own words around it. But what's clear is that it came from somewhere else. The risk is I attribute it to me, and then it just goes to my ego.
Yes.
But to see as I've opened, and how did that happen? And then this other thing came in. Then encourages, well, okay, maybe I need to understand how I might assist that opening again, without, blind faith and laying oneself bare and doing all sorts of crazy things. But most people never had that experience, because it is the stick rather than the stick and carrot.
Yes.
It's always the negative. If you don't, you won't. And then it's like, yeah, but why? If I'm just going to get back to this same normal state, I'm just going from an abnormal one to a normal one, and even the normal one sucks.
Yeah.
What am I living for? And so this becomes important. And Gurdjieff, he always presents the carrot and stick. He always gives, if you continue as you are now, don't expect anything to change in the future. You go, okay, so there's a bit of a negative for you. You don't want things to kind of carry on. And in fact, he says it doesn't carry on. It only gets worse. Right?
Yeah.
It's a managed decline. But he points to this other thing that he doesn't talk a great deal about, but he talks enough about, that this vision, this purpose of human life is to be able to invite, support, and hold these energies of a much higher order that are, if you'd like, preordained for us. They're our real food, our real manna, right? And if we don't have it, we're not really human. We're a shadow of a human.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this kind of recognition that, okay, I am, as the world has shaped me. Um, how now can I move more towards this other place?
Yeah.
And and that and that's a long journey.
Mm.
But in our modern ages, I want quick. I want, how do I get there now? I want to try to short circuit everything that's kind of anti what he was talking about, which is the road is paved with conscious labors and intentional suffering. And I need to learn how to do that. That's what it means to be human, because it invites all these other things in that I don't know of, except maybe through the results of others who have gone before.
Yeah.
And so that this then creates this wonderful exchange and relationship,
Mm.
because maybe there's something in you that I need to help me.
Mm.
And so I look at you very differently now.
Mm.
You're not a woman, not a mother, you're not a whatever. There's something in you that can help me. And if we start to see something like that, there's a mutual inner work here. And I don't know what that mystery is, but I need it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just such a felt difference. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a mind thing. The the intellect gets in the way so much. It's not that it's a bad thing, but
Oh,
boy, it trips us up big
it's a
time.
great, I always talk about it with my intellectual clients. I always talk about, if you're already good at it, like if it's already just such a wonderful, like part of how you engage in the world, then it's right to
Yes.
be taken over as defensive armor as well, right? Everything will
Yeah.
go through there, right? That's the best way to avoid anything else. But then you lose intimacy, and then you lose, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yes, this is reminding me of sort of the idea of like the body as instrument, and how much we can open up to, right? As you were talking there too, I was thinking about, sort of letting other energies in, letting these higher energies in. I was thinking about what else we might let in inadvertently.
Yeah.
And also how there is just a complete lack, at least in the circles I run in, lack of sort of discussion around any of that. And I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit to that. Like that would be.
One must be very careful.
Mm.
Yeah. From what I've seen online and some other groups, the whole kind of drug induced, let's get high and do all sorts of kind of crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you are unprepared. You are naive. So if you take this unseen world seriously, then assume, at least in one sense, it's got traits like our normal earthly world.
Mm-hmm.
There's good bits, there's bad bits, there's bits in between, but most importantly, we don't know. So preparation is key. It still might come in, but if it does, then you'll have a bit of a sense of what might be helpful. But I've seen this and I've experimented a bit myself just to kind of get, where are people going? And I mean, there is in a sense in these people wanting to open up because they normally can't.
Yes.
Drugs are a great way of doing that, or doing these intensive
Mhm.
type of practices. Okay, great. But once you open up
Mm.
and something comes in, then what? And normally there's a naivety that once something comes in, then it's like, well, why has it come in?
Mm.
Okay, and if it does, how does that influence you? How does that affect you?
Yeah.
So Gurdjieff has a saying of, we're always influenced. We're not, no one's immune from it. It's just what influence we want to come under.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so this taste, is it going down more the ego,
Mm.
self kind of gratification pathway, or is it moving towards something where I'm more whole? And so Gurdjieff, in many of his practical exercises, works very much with states of being, which
Mm.
are induced by various things, as a bit of a yardstick of when I'm in a more, or let's say, less whole state,
Mhm.
I'm more identified and consumed,
Yeah.
right? That's mainly the ego state that we're in. The ego only knows itself, doesn't give a shit about anything else.
Yeah.
It's a self-preservation mechanism. Fine. But coarser energies
Mhm.
go there.
Mhm.
the finer energies can't go there.
Mm.
And so if something is finer coming into you, then what I've found is that most people, if they're open but have had at least a little bit of preparation or at least kind of guided,
Mm.
that will come in and do what it needs to do, and then in its own time go away.
Right.
If it's not able to come in, it kind of bounces off, and it's like a lightning bolt hitting you.
You're right.
And then it can drain you, it can make you feel sick. There's actually something wanting to come in,
Mm.
but your container
Mm.
is just not ready for it.
Mm.
It's not kind of prepared enough, which is not a bad thing. It's like, okay,
Yeah, yeah. That's
there's
great.
some
Kind of meet.
work that needs to be done. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this higher kind of voltage.
Mhm.
And I've seen that in myself in various
Mm.
parts of my body. There's just areas that I can't sense or feel, or
Yeah.
used to not sense and feel, and nothing could flow through it.
Yes.
But as soon as there's some work done on that and that begins to open up, it's like the whole channel then just allows this natural movement. It's like breathing.
Mm.
It's like breathing. It's like there's
Yes.
some exercises that can be done, and people, when they try it for the first time, realize how badly they breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they go,
Terrible
"What?"
breathers.
Yeah, terrible
Don't
breathers.
know what we're doing with our body.
And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, they can come into a state where their natural breath, their real natural breath takes over, and all of a sudden the body opens up. And so it's like, no, that's your natural breathing. That's not a spiritual type of supranormal breath. That's how it should be. And so that gives an orientation. So there's all of these things that kind of Gurdjieff said that we need to unlearn a little
Yeah.
and not say that they're normal.
Yeah.
He would say that everyone on the planet is insane and
Mhm.
abnormal,
Yep.
and normal is striving towards being able to allow these other energies to come in and stay within
Right.
without hurting us in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Right.
And that's a very difficult thing for most people to understand, which is why it's really difficult to lead them up to the experience
Mm.
that once they've had that, or at least a taste of it within the context of
Yes.
what's being tried, then it's like, aha. And I've had those myself where, my teachers were telling me this and go, yeah, I know how to do that. Yeah. And then I had the experience and went, this is nothing like I thought.
Yeah. No, you can't know
It's,
it. Mm. Yeah.
no, you can be prepared as much as you can. It's like
Yeah.
childbirth,
Yes.
marriage, anything, you can do all the study, but mate,
Yeah.
when you're in the moment,
They
all
happen
that
when it's
goes
gonna
out the window.
happen. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm really interested in this energy stuff because this is also how I have always sort of naturally thought about it. And once again, you won't be surprised, it's not really part of the psychology speak. Um,
Yeah.
but there really is no better way to describe it. So the kind of when you were talking about the coarser energies and the finer energies, are you just talking about a spectrum that is to do with sort of where we're at and what it is that we're able to let in the moment? Or are you also talking sort of more about like a good and evil kind of thing, like in crude terms? Are you talking about the letting in of energies that doesn't really matter where you're at, to let them in? They kind of have an agenda of their own that is trying to push us back towards something else that is away from wholeness? Or I'm just
Yeah, both.
both.
So,
Yeah, got it.
um,
Yep.
so
Cool.
if coming from my experience and having gone through this myself, because I learned the hard way,
Yeah.
um, uh, if even if those higher order energies come in and you're not prepared for it,
Mm.
it can be, or what appears to be, quite harmful. It can make you sick. It can do all sorts of things. But at least you've had the taste of it.
Mm.
Sometimes with these other energies, when they come in too easily
Mm.
while being unprepared,
Mm.
they are normally the ones which go to places which are not healthy
Got it.
because they come in too easy,
Mm,
because they're not of the same potency as something of a higher order.
mhm,
So it's often hard to put into words,
mm,
but absolutely the good and evil thing, the angelic, the demonic thing, at least in my experience, absolutely there.
mm,
And it affects us in so many different ways that we're
mm.
not aware of. But yet it's so easy to see, a demon kind of behind every rock and an
Yes,
angel like
yes,
the mind really goes a little bit
yeah,
crazy.
can. Mhm.
Um, but Gurdjieff often talks in energetic terms because he has a series of qualities and kind of quantities and intensities of what these kind of energies mean.
Okay.
So, for example, uh, when we sense the body, um, the impressions that we get, the sensations that we get from the body, modern neuroscience just goes, well, it's a nerve kind of propagation, and that's kind of all it is. Bollocks,
Yeah,
bollocks.
yeah.
There's a lot more going on. Massless waveforms, all sorts of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, Gurdjieff sees that as our perception of the energies of the body and what surrounds it,
Mm,
what is moving through the body, what is part of it. He has this sense that the body is just an organizing entity
mm.
in a field of action.
Yeah, right.
And if you look at what our body's made of, we're mostly water,
Mm,
then there's some kind of proteins. There's not much of us that we can actually say is solid. And then when you get to the whole kind of neurological thing, well, that's a whole kind of kettle of fish where it's very hard to pin down what is you in the physical sense.
mhm. Agreed. Mhm.
But he talks of humans as three-brain beings, but as beings, that is some kind of energetic organization.
Yeah.
And so on that kind of basis, it's very simple. Okay, how do I begin to observe my energies?
Mm,
And so you kind of start very, very small.
mm,
And the smallest one is just, well, can I sense the body?
mm,
Because those sensations are always there. We're just not connecting to them.
mm,
And this comes back to attention. Well, what is attention? How is it that when I can pay attention to the body, all of a sudden I sense more of the body? It amplifies somehow. And if one can sense the body in a more full way, it changes the state of being that I'm in.
mm.
And this state is correlated to higher forms of feelings
Yeah. Yeah.
that can only come in when I'm in a different state.
Yes.
If I'm in a lower state, they just can't come in. And I'm contained by these lower sort of energies.
Yes.
And of course, there's all this stuff around it. But at the end of the day, much of the work is just, okay, what's here? I need to be with that. And can I have a sense of an inner taste
Mm,
of what's coursing through me, a sense of the energies of thought, of the intellect,
mhm,
as opposed to energies of reactions and
mm.
emotions, as opposed to energies of movement or sex or whatever it is, to find a way to, without drawing too many conclusions, just begin to kind of classify it by sense and taste, not an intellectual thing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really helpful. Yeah, the sort of finer energies that are moving into the more nuanced space or postures or um yeah, I like this because I guess, for me, more and more so, I'm just coming to see ISTDP as one way of at least working on the blockages that might be sitting emotionally, that get in the way of us being able to sense into and attend to and experience these sort of finer feelings. Like I sort of differentiate out emotions from something more like felt senses. Um, these more nuanced sets of feelings that let us know things like I think hope is even one. Like something like that is much more of what I would call like a higher order felt sense than an emotion.
Mm.
Um, so so there is something here too to the sort of the spectrum of those feelings. What I'm really drawn into as you are talking is just this use of the word taste. And there's a few words that you've used that are sort of down that same line. Did I write one down? Gosh, what was the other one? But there's this sort of it's interesting because obviously I'm honing in on sort of emotional sense. But there's a lot of emphasis these days on the visual system. But this taste and sort of gustatory is that's really interesting to me, because I often talk about this as like the knowing. The knowing to me is sort of like a felt knowing. But you're talking about it in terms of taste, like that things have a taste. I'm just wondering if that has any particular lineage of importance, that it's a taste that you know
I,
of, as opposed to
I,
anything else.
yeah, I don't know, but the reason why I'm drawn to it, use it a great deal, is because the gustatory system, like the olfaction system, doesn't have any of the normal mind processing before it goes straight into our central nervous system. It's very primitive, it's ancient, it's old.
What it
And so you're getting more pure impressions that you
right.
can trust much more than if you try to filter it through your intellect. Because
Mm,
the thing I've seen, and I see this in myself, is that as soon as I receive an impression and I begin to think about it, then there's a whole cascade of analysis
yeah.
and it stops there. But if I can try to smell it, what does it smell like to be angry? I
Mm,
mean, there is literally a smell with it. I mean, an inner smell.
yes.
You know, what's this taste of hope? What's this, what's a higher order feeling? It literally comes from certain places in the body and
Mm,
comes up out of us. What is all those depressive feelings? Literally, they weigh us down. Literally, the energy is heavy
yes.
and there's a
Taste.
taste to it.
Mm,
So this mode of perception, again,
mm.
I'm not saying that the intellect is a bad thing, but it's just so overused.
Oh, so
But
overused. It gets in the way of all this. Yeah. Yeah.
it blocks the very pure and raw impressions that one needs of one's being.
Mm,
And so if I can begin to refocus, well, what does this taste like? How does this come through my body?
mm,
Like with anxiety,
mm.
my breath
Oh, yeah.
starts to, yeah, I might get dry mouth. I might get, oh, okay, this is how this energy is
Mm,
expressing itself through the body. So and I encourage those who work with me and myself, is not to name anything, just describe it.
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
As soon as I name, then I kind of cut something off.
And all the
And it,
associations come in. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm. Oh, no, now you've gone. Hold on.
am I back?
Back.
I'm back. Um, this this sense of taste, which everybody has,
Mm,
and can be learned, is just foreign, and so that's wonderful
mm,
because I have to come to it consciously.
mm.
I have no reference frame,
Yeah.
and so it's like, okay, let's just see what that when you're angry or when you're
Mm,
whatever, how does it come into the body? How do you sense it? How do you taste it? How do you smell it?
mm,
Forget about your eyes.
mm,
Forget even about how you might hear it. Just this pure organic sense. And that gives something else that maybe in time,
mm,
the intellect can then appreciate because it has another kind of data point.
mm,
It goes, oh, okay, that's a little bit more like that rather than like what I think. And
mm.
so this taste, this sense, um, is is something also that I need to suffer with
Yeah.
because it causes a reaction. It's like when
It's sudden.
you
Mm.
smell a fart.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, it's
Yeah. It's intense.
it's intense, but it's there, and you never forget it.
Mm,
It's ingrained, and that's in a way this sense of the energies in the body then forms another memory.
yeah.
It has then an attention of its own, so you don't have to worry about trying to remember it
Mm,
with your head. The body just knows, and the body will help you.
mm. Yeah, that's amazing. There's something about smell and taste How do I explain it? So I agree with you. Smell and taste don't get very much attention, but there is something about, you're right, those two modalities in particular, at certain points in the work that I do, they do become just organically kind of, yeah, people start talking about them, like reporting from that place. Like there is a role. I completely understand what you're saying. And I'm thinking about, for myself, I have a very sensitive smell and taste perception. I always have. And there's something, now I'm going to go sideways a little bit, but that's all right. There's something about when I read poetry, it creates smell and taste. It's really strange. And that there is, yeah, that I love that. That's making lots of connections for me in ways I can't quite put words to, but there is something to it that is of the higher order. I hear what you're saying there. It bypasses the usual ways of making sense of things. And that's actually the experience I enjoy of reading poetry, is that it does bypass my intellect, because my mind will go. my mind loves to think, and it will, and so I think there is something about having that experience as I read it that feels almost like a relief, because it's I can just like have this experience, no need for words today.
Yeah. And that can expand. I mean, there's energies of the body. I was a massage therapist. I taught it for a while, but every massage therapist knows the heat and the radiation given off of a body. You just naturally pick it up. Otherwise you're numb, but you naturally pick it up. And I can remember raising this with people who are not massage therapists, going, no, that's just all a bunch of, that's just in your head. It's all this. And you just go, wow, they've never had that experience of literally feeling the thermal energies of another body.
Yeah.
Let alone
most people
other
haven't.
stuff.
Most people haven't. And there's a real, I mean, it just feels like it's on the rise to me. There's a real push towards just living up here. I'm curious on your thoughts about that, actually, in a general sense. We were just talking about energies and sort of more of the, demonic forces, and the sort of the movement towards wholeness versus away from, and the sense that why is it that we are in this sort of snowballing away from wholeness and away from all these sorts of things that you and I have just been discussing today, that it requires so much reorientation and attention to oneself and all of these things to sort of pull oneself out of that momentum. Does Gurdjieff talk about sort of like potentially the why? Do you have it? Do you have your own independent sense or way of thinking about it? Is this all by design, essentially, is what I'm driving? There's these sort of forces at play that, because there is just so much of how life runs currently that just seems to be purposefully with an agenda to push us away from everything that you and I have just been discussing.
Yeah. Look, yes, he speaks about it in very many kind of different ways. Part of it's kind of planetary, just the nature of what things are, and even planetary alignment, and looking at planets as kind of organisms and entities of their own, and that when they pass each other, there's frictions that are caused that kind of reverberate through both. And because this thin film of life, the biosphere that we call it, is always constantly absorbing all of this, that it's no wonder that we're getting some of this cosmic energy, if I can call it, that's needing to be reoriented. But also he has a concept he calls time, the merciless hero pass. It has a special meaning. But we're at a point in time in history where we have an unprecedented time compression. So through most of human history, not much really changed for long periods of time.
Yeah.
You'd be in the same family doing the same job that your father did and his father, and yada, 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 for centuries. Now, in the space of a single lifetime, just look at what's happened in the last 20 years. Even in my lifetime, I was a pre kind of internet kind of baby.
Yeah, me too.
Well, you've just seen how much has just changed in that short period of time. That vibratory cycle we've never been exposed to. And when that happens, this kind of boiling point, this kind of critical mass, he says, is an opportunity for those who know how to use it and absolutely devastating for those who do not. And so one of the interesting parts, and in a sense, it's part of one's inner work when I come to boiling point. You know, there are some things where you've been pondering for a long time and then all of a sudden something just clicks. Or you receive something and then it takes you many years to work it out.
Yes,
Right.
those.
So there's something on a planetary scale for all of life, but particularly human life, where we're all in the same boat, all going through this extraordinary vibratory exchange that no one, our species, has not experienced as a collective. And so I think, and certainly what Gurdjieff said in the last couple of 100 years, the reason why his work and a range of other kind of spiritual kind of work has filtered out throughout the world and become known, because up until then it was kept very, very hush-hush. It only came through brotherhoods. It was never, ever meant to be divulged to the outside world. Is to help support this transition. And essentially it goes two ways. You'll either come to recognize it as an opportunity, like the suffering thing, as a way to begin to awaken some of those vital latent parts in you.
Yeah.
Or you'll be so consumed and identified with it, you go mad. There's only two ways. There is no middle ground. And the more this complexifies, the more what we think is middle ground is no middle ground at all. It's one or the other. And that's kind of deeply terrifying.
Yes. Yeah.
So this for him is in his own words, if our species can't find a way to reconcile that, we're doomed.
Yeah.
Of course, he does bring in some other things that of kind of a divine nature, which will help us. But at the end of the day, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, you know, people just living in villages.
Yeah.
You know, electricity wasn't a thing. It was just fire and horses. It's only been the last couple of 100 years, which is in the blink of an eye. If you look at from the Industrial Revolution until now, a couple of 100 years at most. And if you look what's happened in the last 30 years, this whole kind of internet thing, which I call a fourth brain, because it literally acts like one, that we're all plugged into and sucked into, unless there's a sufficient strength of quality of being to resist that pull into this other brain. If we don't have that, then we effectively become so addicted to it that we can't live without it.
Yeah.
Because it's literally feeding us, but it's only feeding a very small part of us. And so I think that there's these emergence of feeling and bodies and felt senses and all of that, which I'm hearing more and more.
Yes.
Lots of people talk about it. No one really knows how to do it except by thinking more and more about it, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do.
I agree. And that was actually part of the initial frustration that drew me into trying to take part in some of these conversations online. Was just I loved listening to them. I loved it, but I was sitting there talking out loud back to the recording, just well intentioned, but just so much sort of talking and intellectual exploration of like as an example, talking about felt senses or there's something missing. I think as well, what we're up against too is there's so much here around the desire for certainty, feeling in control, the need and amongst all of this for humility, the starting position of really not knowing, being willing to not know, being willing to find out more and more that you don't know. The facing things that are very painful inside. Confronting the way I talk about is confronting parts of yourself that you just have never wanted to confront before, right? And then there is this desire, yes, I think for a certainty and a feeling like we are on a particular track. We know what it is, we know where it's leading to, and we know that if something starts to change that we don't like, we can easily depart and move this way or that way. Or there's just so much to the opening up phrase, I think is what I'm getting to is that comes with the willingness to sit in not knowing, to do that with another person. It's one thing to learn to sort of do that within yourself, and then to be with another person, to be in relationship, to be humble, to confront difference in relationship, not from a position of competitiveness, needing to win, all these things. That I think that also links to what I was saying earlier when you were talking, and I sort of said something about time. That is the bit that takes longer too. It takes longer to be with your spouse and try to work through something from a position of being willing to not know together and sort of work through it, as opposed to going in with, we have 5 minutes before the kids wake up. Just someone's going to have to win this one. So who's going to win? Let's go battle. So there really is a need for some time. Time operates differently in amongst all of this as well. Pace. And also what you were saying is the same with ISTDP, or the way that sort of I work with emotions, in that there is a change to the pace for a while, but then at the same time, there are moments where a lot can happen all at once, and so there is a lot of variance as well. I don't want to imply that this is just a long, drawn out thing.
Yeah.
But there are long, drawn out moments, and there can be times, I've found anyway, where there can be more of a sitting around waiting kind of feeling. It's like you were talking about, you can do the preparation for some of this too. But ultimately, transformative moments for me are sort of given to me. And so there is just sort of the preparation and the waiting as well is important. Yeah, I don't really know where I'm getting to with this. I'm just throwing a lot of stuff out that was coming to mind as you were talking.
No, it is. It is that there's often this sense, and it's what I call the commercialization of the whole spiritual marketplace is, you can get somewhere quickly, you can do all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
But, can I sustain something?
Mm.
And at least in my experience, there's not much I can actually sustain.
Yes.
My world gets quite small, but yet if I can just help sustain it, day in, day out, I just do that little thing with diligence. Often I don't want to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's just, okay, I got to do it. Does create something over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like being in a long-term relationship. You don't see it every day, and then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, there's something here. The secret abode, as it's called in the Christian world, and in a fast-paced, that time compression where everything's go, go, go and flip, 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 flip. There's no experience of that. It's always wanting to intervene, always wanting to change something. And so Gurdjieff says it goes round and round and round, even though we think we're going in a straight line. But to go in a straight line, one needs to be able to navigate everything that's pulling you away from it.
Yeah.
And that just takes work. It's just welcome to adult life. I mean, just in its normal sense, let alone in a spiritual sense. So and there is these long periods of kind of desert stuff.
Yeah.
Where it's just, well, what am I doing? Where am I going? But it helps bring some fertile soil so that when you do hit the oasis, something can change pretty abruptly. And then you can look back and go, yeah, I needed to go through the desert.
Yes. Yeah.
Needed that.
Not until you get to that vantage point. No, I agree with you that you can actually see it in that manner. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's hard. I mean, one of the things I think with just broadly with the mental health industry and the therapeutic kind of model in general is that in a way there's more of a need for it, but it doesn't go far enough.
No, I agree.
It stops just where it needs to get going. And I understand why it stops, right? Because there's too much, too much kind of hang up and baggage, and we've got to be, the scientific method and
Too much to regulate, too much
most you've got to regulate, becomes very legalese,
Yes, that's
know, and it's at that point it loses sight of what is a human being?
Yeah.
What does it need from here on in? And that's just a very scary question, because to say there's uncertainty and that other humans just need other humans, it won't come through an algorithm or a legal framework or a bit of regulation or whatever, and it won't help throwing more money at it.
Right.
That's too scary of a proposition. So I think there's this very interesting, and I think it's being raised on all fronts. It's really, where is this going? Right? And that takes you into a very uncomfortable place, because it's the unknown, and the unknown is unknown. I don't know it, but no one wants to admit it. Certainly not kind of governments or politicians or regulatory bodies or industry groups. You're right. What I feel, this certainty, the more you grasp for it, the more uncertain things are, because you lose sight of what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
So I get this sense it's what's happening in us, absolutely happening in the world, just at a grander scale. That's just more obvious now than what it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, it's a real shame, because for many people it really is the extent of work that we can do together. It really is such a shift, and there's a lot of gains and all these things. But then there are some people for which it can almost just leave a person hanging, like to sort of be able to work so far to open up, and then it's sort of that's all this model can give.
Yeah. Time's up now. Time's up, or it's right across the health model broadly, but I would say it's right across our world. You'll get help up to a certain extent, and then you're kind of, as you said, left hanging.
Yeah.
So I think all of these spaces, particularly on the internet, everyone's trying to grapple with, well, what next?
Yeah. Yeah, you're so right. It is. It's what's next. Just so I can get a sense of how you work, because I know sort of in your book there's sort of group transcripts, but do you see people one-on-one? You do group stuff?
Do group stuff, involved with a couple of groups, meet people. I'm always in kind of contact with people. So I've kind of gone down the non-kind of sort of Gurdjieffian line, which is mainly group-based, which I did for 25 years and it was great. But there's something at least calling me, and maybe that kind of resonates with what you said right at the very start. There's something calling you that needs to explore a non-group. So I won't call it individuals, but non-group, because it's a very interesting, I'm engaged with people around the world, but yet they're the same questions.
Yes.
And they're the same types of things. And in the work, we call it the web, right? We're part of this mind sphere, I'd say, this higher level of kind of consciousness where it's seeding things and we can tap into it. Maybe it expresses itself in a different way, but there's something kind of coming up. And sometimes it requires like a group. I don't call them groups. I just call them a network.
Yeah.
Because it really is people coming and trying to come to something that they know that they need, but are not kind of beholden to. A group or a community tends to be like, well, when you're in the club, you're going to stay there.
Duty and responsibility and
yes, all of that. And I go, no. The work for me is you feel it and you feel the need to work. And if it needs a network or a group, great. If it needs one-on-one, great. But you've got to follow that thread. Becomes overshadowed by structures and corporate groups and, thou shalt and thou shalt nots and membership fees and all of that just kills it.
Yeah, well, look at you, truly attuned to each moment. See, who knew? That's it, right? So each moment and each interaction calls for attendance to that, and to figure that out, as opposed to, yeah, the way I do it is, yeah, that's right. We'll meet this many times and this much, and
do all of that. And look, that's not normally the Gurdjieffian way. So I'm very much on the outer in that sense, but I don't care, because I wish to follow this thread,
yeah.
the Holy Spirit as it's called. But there's something, there's just something, and it's like, how can I just keep contact with that, allow it to show me the way? And I've come in contact with people who I never thought I'd ever come in contact with, and speak about things I'd never thought I would speak about, and more importantly, do things I never thought I would ever do.
Yes.
And so it's been a wonderful work for me. So while I'm still being fed, then, for me anyway, I need to follow that calling wherever it leads. But I do feel many people are trying in their own way, and it's needed. It's needed to explore these things and exhaust them, explore every option, go down every alley, good, bad, or otherwise. And then maybe something in some other space will be shared across the globe.
Yeah, it's fascinating, because that is just, as I told you before we started recording, I think that is just very similar to my experience of finding myself talking to people, recording it, putting it on a YouTube channel, all of that. Just really is following a sort of a thread or something that is insistent. Is the only way I can put words to. And when I take it seriously, not always, there are sort of bumps along the way. And sometimes I do have those moments I get caught in my thinking, what am I doing? What is this? It has its own momentum. It really does have its own energy to it. And, has led me here to speak with you today, which is, this is another example of that. It's a strange thing to try and put into words for people. Yeah.
But when you bring yourself to it, you're not compelled to do it for a commercial reason or anything else. It brings something very different, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, even my husband sometimes is like, that's great and everything. So, but like, what? Why are you spending your time doing that? What? From a curious place, but I can't even explain it. I just it's almost like I must, but it's a very different I must to the defensive kind of intellectual, self-attacking, like holding myself to rigid standards, responsibility, duty stuff. It's not that. It's it's got again, I want to use the word nourishment, but that could be confused with like an ego kind of nourishment. It's not that at all. Because I actually find it very uncomfortable to put my face and myself out on the internet. And I used to hate public speaking, and so it's actually a very uncomfortable forum altogether in many ways for me. And yet, I think the fact that that I followed the thread anyway kind of really speaks to what we're driving at. Is that this is not about sort of looking out for what would you even call it, signals or invitations to do things that feel joyful and positive necessarily. They may come with their own forms of suffering, if we call it that. There is much about recording stuff, putting it online that that does feel uncomfortable for me. But there's a different quality to the knowing that I'm on a thread of something.
Yeah.
And I think that discernment is so important. And that is part of what, hopefully, part of what I am helping people to do some work around, removing some of the blockages and internal stuff that is getting in the way of their ability to be able to tune into some of this and discern those sorts of differences.
Yeah. No, I think being uncomfortable is incredibly important. Because there's so much polished speaking on the internet, very scripted, and it's wonderful. It sounds very pretty, but it's just vaporware. But, when someone's really struggling with something, and I certainly never wanted to put my face on YouTube, but it was like, okay, I've for the sake of following this thread, I have to suffer with that.
Yes.
And that's That's not comfortable.
Mm.
But yet it's okay. It does bring up something, and maybe just that, and hundreds, if not hopefully thousands of people trying to sit in that uncomfortableness and being seen create some kind of reciprocity in others. And it may not be what we say.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just we're here trying.
That's right. It's actually all the fumbles, and it's actually seeing that someone is a bit anxious, and it is actually seeing that, you know, that bit didn't land. And I think it's all of that is so rich. It's such a rich tapestry. And that is the part that it really is part of why, as much as I can, there are certain portions of conversations. I do this trio conversation with Daniel Garner and Seth Dellinger. We meet about once a month, and we have it up on my channel. And there are certain portions in some of those that I've been very close to cutting out before I put the live. And I'm like, oh, I just think as much as possible, it's important, I think, the whole message of whatever the message is in this particular conversation between you and I, when it reaches another particular person who's watching, the whole message is all of it. It's not just the words we're sharing, it's everything. It is what they're seeing of us and our bodies and our tones and our struggling and our whatever it is that lands for them. And so as much as possible, I try to keep it in for that reason. I can't know what it's going to do when someone else listens to it or hears it. Actually, if I do cut things out, the sadness of it is that generally they're things I cut out because I do have to be careful, because I'm a registered psychologist. And so, yeah.
Understandable though. There are things I can't say because of what I do, but I'm much more free to say things.
Yes.
Than,
I'll write them on a bit of paper and just pass them to you, Luke. To say
paper notes. But you know, that's Gurdjieff used to say that the ultimate aim is to work for the future, but a future that you don't know.
Yeah.
So you just try something, you throw it out there, and hopefully the intention, kind of comes back, maybe not to you, but to where it's needed. And so this again comes to this question of, if I don't believe there's anything kind of beyond me, it's all just within me, I'll never try that.
Yes.
And this is this subtle, and it's so subtle how to help people to go, well, just try it. You might think it's silly, stupid. You don't kind of believe in any of that, but just try it and see. And it does changes the relationship within yourself with it, which is essentially what all the exercises and even prayer does, just changes the relationship. But that subtle movement, it's like all of a sudden I'm completely different. How does that happen?
Yeah.
That's the mystery. That's that unknown that you can't force anyone to go down.
Yeah. And that's where people who are holding on to certainty with such rigor, that's where it can start to fall away. They just notice, wow, that version of me 2 minutes ago, it was so certain that I knew everything about how this operates. Yeah, it's just been blown away. And I think that idea of getting a taste for it, and I'm pretty sure that what you're saying is the same thing in your approach. But my approach obviously is that the experiential is really the only way to really get for a person to really understand what on earth we're talking about with all of these words. So there is obviously the talking about, and then just the experiential component. And so, being able to help a person just have a small moment of that. That is the building the case, I guess. It's I'm also aware of time, and I am going to have to start to wrap up. Can't believe how fast that went. I really didn't get to any of my notes, which is what always happens. I don't know why I bothered writing notes anymore. But I think I write the notes knowing that I'll never get to the notes, if that makes sense. Maybe that's just part of the preparation. And I'm sure I'll wish that I asked you all these things. But I would love to talk to you again at some point.
Yeah, love to too. Yeah, no, I've there's a lot of common ground here, and yes, some weird resonances. So
I
yeah,
agree.
good.
Yeah, there's a lot that's similar here. And there was something to, again, I can't remember if we were talking about this before or after the record button, but there's something to the way that it seems like both of us have found ourselves, I guess, right, at this particular point in our lives, as opposed to planning it out, as opposed to, I was definitely never someone who had a career trajectory planned out or anything like that. And it's amazing, and it's really truly amazing when I look back on think just certain events in my life and ways that things have gone for me, and how they all link together in strange ways that I would never have known at the time, and how it all just there is no way I could look back on my life and not be aware of the mystery that is existence, truly. And it also comes with a lot of suffering and a lot of pain. Because I think sometimes when we talk about mystery and all of these things, it can sort of sound like a positive spin kind of mystery, like yeah. But it's part of being alive for me. And so it's such a blessing to meet you, and to have come across your work as well. And so I hope this is the start of many, Luke.
I hope so too. Thank you very much for reaching out. And I'm very happy we had this talk, and I hope many more.
Definitely.